Have you ever wondered what it feels like to carry the hopes of an entire country before you're even old enough to understand the weight of those expectations? Imagine being told that you're the next legend, the next hero, the next player who will bring glory back to a football-obsessed nation. Imagine hearing those words before you've even become an adult. Most people dream of being recognized, but recognition can become a burden. Because once the world expects greatness from you, every mistake becomes unforgettable, every injury becomes a national tragedy. Every defeat feels personal. This is not just the story of a football player. It's the story of a boy who carried millions of dreams on his shoulders. A boy who smiled through pressure. Who entertained the world with his talent, yet quietly fought battles that few people ever noticed. This is the story of Neymar Jr. Long before the stadiums, before the millions of followers, before the luxury homes, before the record-breaking transfer fees, there was a small city in Brazil called Mogi das Cruzes. A place where football wasn't simply entertainment. It was hope. It was identity. It was a way for families to imagine a better future. And inside one modest home lived a little boy whose life would eventually inspire millions. Neymar da Silva Santos Jr. was born on February 5, 1992. His family didn't have much money. His parents worked hard to provide what they could. Like countless Brazilian families, they understood what it meant to struggle. Every bill mattered, every opportunity mattered, nothing was guaranteed, but there was something inside that home more valuable than wealth. Belief. His father, Neymar Santos Sr., had once dreamed of becoming a professional footballer himself. He understood the game, he understood sacrifice, and perhaps more importantly, he understood how quickly dreams can disappear. When he looked at his son, he didn't simply see another child playing football. He saw possibility, he saw talent, he saw a dream that deserved every chance to survive. From an early age, Neymar rarely wanted the ball to leave his feet. While other children eventually became tired, he kept playing, morning, afternoon, evening. Football wasn't something he practiced. It was part of who he was. The streets became his classroom. Concrete roads became his training ground. Every match against older children became another lesson. And little by little, people started noticing something unusual. He wasn't the biggest. He wasn't the strongest. But whenever the ball reached his feet, everything changed. Defenders hesitated. Crowds smiled. Coaches watched in disbelief. There was joy in the way he played. The kind of joy that couldn't be taught. The kind that reminded people why they fell in love with football in the first place. But talent alone has never been enough. History is filled with gifted children whose dreams never became reality. The difference is often sacrifice. And sacrifice became part of Neymar's childhood long before success ever arrived. His father spent countless hours helping him improve. Training sessions became daily routines. Long drives to matches became normal. Family time often revolved around football. Every decision carried one question: how do we give this boy the best chance possible? It wasn't easy. Money remained tight. The future remained uncertain. Many families would have played it safe. Neymar's family chose something far more difficult. They chose belief over certainty. As the years passed, Neymar's reputation spread across Brazil. Local coaches talked about him. Youth tournaments became opportunities for scouts to watch him. People whispered that a special player was growing before their eyes. Eventually, one of Brazil's biggest football clubs came calling. Santos FC. For Brazilian football, Santos wasn't just another club. It was history. It was tradition. It was the place where one of football's greatest legends had once changed the game forever. Joining Santos meant something. It meant opportunity. But it also meant pressure. Because every young player arriving there carried the same impossible question: could he become the next great Brazilian superstar? For Neymar, that question would follow him for the rest of his career. At Santos, life changed. Training became harder. Competition became stronger. Every player around him had once been the best in their hometown. Nobody was there by accident. Every training session became a battle. Every mistake became a lesson. Every success had to be earned. Many young talents disappear at this stage. The pressure becomes too heavy. The expectations become overwhelming. The dream begins to feel impossible. Neymar did something different. Instead of fearing the pressure, he played with freedom. He smiled. He danced. He dribbled. He entertained. Some coaches questioned his style. They believed he took too many risks. Too many tricks. Too much creativity. But Neymar understood something important. Football wasn't just about winning. It was about expression. It was about making people feel something. And whenever he stepped onto the pitch, people felt something: excitement, wonder, joy. Slowly, Brazil began falling in love with him. Newspapers started writing about the teenage sensation. Television cameras followed him everywhere. Children copied his celebrations. Fans filled stadiums just to watch him play. He wasn't simply becoming famous. He was becoming a symbol of hope. Brazil had spent years searching for its next football hero. Many believed they had finally found him. But fame arrives faster than maturity. And that's where life becomes complicated. Imagine becoming famous before you've fully discovered who you are. Imagine millions of strangers having opinions about you every single day. Imagine every mistake becoming international news. That is not a normal childhood. That was Neymar's reality. Yet despite the growing attention, he continued playing with the same smile, the same imagination, the same fearless style that first made people notice him. What nobody realized was that success was arriving much faster than life experience. And sometimes, that combination creates challenges far greater than poverty ever could. Because earning millions is difficult. Learning how to carry millions of expectations is even harder. And Neymar was about to discover that the higher you climb, the heavier the pressure becomes. And Neymar was about to discover that the higher you climb, the heavier the pressure becomes. By the age of 17, Neymar was no longer just a promising young footballer. He had become Brazil's biggest sporting sensation. Every weekend, stadiums were packed with fans hoping to witness something unforgettable. Every newspaper carried his name. Every television channel discussed his future. People weren't simply watching Neymar. They were waiting for magic. That kind of expectation can inspire some people. But it can also become a prison. Because when the world expects brilliance every single time you touch the ball, being ordinary is no longer an option. Every dribble had to be spectacular. Every goal had to be memorable. Every performance had to remind people why they believed in him. For a teenager, that is an incredible amount of pressure. Yet Neymar rarely allowed the pressure to change the way he played. He remained fearless. He attacked defenders. He attempted impossible skills. He accepted failure as part of creativity. Because he understood something many athletes forget. If you're afraid of making mistakes, you'll never create anything extraordinary. Soon, Santos became more than just a football club. It became the stage where Neymar introduced himself to the world. His performances grew better with every season. Goals came regularly. Assists followed. Crowds stood on their feet before he even received the ball. Children wore his jersey. Sponsors lined up to work with him. The little boy who once played barefoot in Brazilian streets was becoming one of the most recognizable young athletes on earth. But behind the celebration, there was another reality. His life no longer belonged entirely to him. Simple walks became impossible. Privacy disappeared. Every decision became public. Every relationship became news. Every mistake became entertainment. Fame gives you attention, but it also takes away something priceless: the ability to live an ordinary life. As Neymar's popularity exploded, so did the comparisons. People didn't simply call him talented. They began calling him the next Pelé. Think about that for a moment. Pelé wasn't just another football player. He was a national icon. A global legend, one of the greatest athletes in history. Now imagine carrying that comparison before turning 20. No matter how well Neymar played, someone always expected more. If he scored one goal, people expected two. If he won one trophy, people demanded another. If he played brilliantly, the world asked whether he could do it again. That cycle never stopped, because expectations grow faster than success. Still, Neymar kept delivering. In 2011, Santos achieved something extraordinary. They won the Copa Libertadores, South America's most prestigious club competition. For Santos supporters, it was a dream come true. For Neymar, it was proof that he could lead a team on the biggest stages. The football world finally accepted what Brazil had known for years. This young man wasn't just talented. He was special. European clubs had already been watching. Now they were competing. Every major team wanted his signature. Scouts traveled across continents to watch him. Reports described him as the future of football. The question was no longer if he would move to Europe. The only question was where. Then, in 2013, the announcement arrived. Neymar would join Barcelona, one of the biggest football clubs in history. A club filled with legends. A club where expectations never disappear. Leaving Brazil wasn't just about changing teams. It meant leaving home, leaving familiar faces, leaving the country that had shaped him, starting over in a completely different culture. Many people imagined the transfer as the beginning of a perfect life. But starting over is never easy. No matter how famous you are, no matter how talented you are, the language was different, the football was faster, the defenders were stronger, the media was harsher, every mistake became front-page news. Many young stars struggle when they arrive in Europe. Some lose confidence, some lose themselves. Neymar refused to disappear. Instead, he learned, he adapted, he became stronger, and then something extraordinary happened. He found himself playing alongside two of the greatest footballers of his generation. Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, three completely different personalities, one unforgettable partnership. Football fans would eventually know them by three simple letters: MSN. Together, they created some of the most beautiful attacking football the sport had ever seen. Goals seemed effortless. Assists appeared from impossible angles. Opponents had no answers. Every match felt like watching art. For many people, these were the happiest years of Neymar's career. He wasn't carrying the entire team alone. The pressure was shared. The joy returned. The smile became genuine again. In 2015, Barcelona reached the Champions League final. Millions watched around the world. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Neymar delivered. Barcelona became champions of Europe. The dream continued. At just 23 years old, Neymar had already won almost everything. Champions League, league titles, domestic cups, international recognition, money, fame, respect. From the outside, life looked perfect. But inside Neymar, a different question had quietly begun to grow. A question very few people understood. How do you become your own legend when you're playing beside another one? Because no matter how brilliant Neymar became, Barcelona still belonged to Lionel Messi. Messi was the face of the club, the captain of the project, the player around whom everything revolved. Neymar admired him deeply. They shared unforgettable moments together. But every great athlete carries a dream that goes beyond admiration. The dream to discover their own limits. The dream to build their own legacy. The dream to prove they can lead. That dream slowly became impossible to ignore. Then came one of the biggest decisions in football history. A decision that shocked fans around the world. A decision many people still debate today. Neymar chose to leave Barcelona. Not because he disliked the club. Not because he disliked his teammates. But because he wanted something every ambitious person eventually searches for. His own path. His own story. His own identity. In 2017, Paris Saint-Germain activated the release clause. More than 220 million euros. The largest transfer fee football had ever seen. The world stood still. Some called him brave. Others called him greedy. Some believed he was chasing greatness. Others believed he was running away from Messi's shadow. Everyone had an opinion. Very few understood the pressure behind the decision. Because from that day forward, there would be no excuses. No sharing responsibility. No hiding behind legends. If PSG succeeded, Neymar would receive the praise. If they failed, he would receive the blame. And that kind of responsibility would test him more than any defender ever had. Because sometimes, the hardest opponent isn't standing across from you on the football pitch. Sometimes, it's the expectations inside your own mind. Sometimes, it's the expectations inside your own mind. The day Neymar arrived in Paris, the football world witnessed history. He wasn't just another signing. He became the most expensive football player the world had ever seen. More than 220 million euros. A number so enormous that people stopped talking about football and started talking about money. Every headline carried his name. Every television show debated his decision. Every football fan had an opinion. Some believed he had made the perfect move. Others believed he had made the biggest mistake of his career. But only Neymar truly knew why he had left Barcelona. He wasn't trying to escape greatness. He was trying to discover his own. Sometimes success creates an invisible prison. When you're standing beside someone considered the greatest in history, people stop seeing your achievements. They only see comparisons. Every goal becomes, but Messi. Every trophy becomes, but Messi. Every brilliant performance becomes, but Messi is still better. Living inside someone else's shadow can slowly make you question your own identity. Neymar wanted to know one thing. How far could he go on his own? Paris Saint-Germain promised him that opportunity. The club believed he could become the face of a new era. The player who would finally bring them the UEFA Champions League trophy. The responsibility was enormous. For the first time in his career, an entire project revolved around him. At first, everything looked perfect. Goals came quickly. Defenders struggled to stop him. Fans adored him. Paris welcomed its new superstar. It seemed as though Neymar had made the right decision. But football has a cruel way of changing stories overnight. Then came the injuries. At first, people believed they were temporary. A few weeks, maybe a month. Then another injury arrived, and another, and another. The rhythm of his career began breaking apart. Every time Neymar started finding his best form, His body betrayed him. For an athlete, there is almost no pain greater than watching from the sidelines. You train every day, you sacrifice everything, yet your own body refuses to cooperate. The world sees an injured player. The athlete feels helplessness. Millions criticized him without understanding what rehabilitation actually feels like. Hours in treatment rooms, painful recovery sessions, watching teammates compete while you can only observe, wondering whether you'll ever feel the same again. People often assume athletes only suffer during matches. Sometimes, the hardest battles happen in silence. Away from cameras, away from crowds, inside empty rehabilitation rooms. Still, whenever Neymar returned, he reminded everyone why they had fallen in love with his football. The creativity, the imagination, the joy, the confidence, it never disappeared. Even after injuries, he could still produce moments that made stadiums erupt. But football isn't only judged by beautiful moments. It is judged by trophies. And there was one trophy PSG wanted more than anything else. The UEFA Champions League. Every season began with the same dream. This year would be different. This year they would finally become champions of Europe. Every season, the pressure became heavier. Every season, the expectations became louder. Every season, the criticism became harsher. Then came 2020. For the first time in the club's history, Paris Saint-Germain reached the Champions League final. Neymar was finally one match away from delivering everything the club had dreamed about. Everything he had dreamed about. Everything the transfer had been built around. One victory, 90 minutes. History was waiting. The opponent, Bayern Munich. The match remained incredibly tense. Every opportunity mattered. Every decision mattered. PSG fought. Neymar fought. But football can be painfully unfair. Bayern scored. The final whistle arrived. The dream disappeared. Again. Another final. Another heartbreak. As Bayern celebrated, Neymar stood in silence, watching another opportunity slip away. Many people remembered the defeat. Few remembered how close he had come. Football often judges outcomes, not journeys. The criticism returned immediately. He failed. He'll never justify the transfer. He'll never become the best player in the world. People forgot something important. Failure doesn't erase greatness. Failure simply reminds us that greatness is never guaranteed. Then life delivered challenges far bigger than football. Every athlete eventually discovers an uncomfortable truth. The world applauds you when you're winning, but it becomes very quiet when you're hurting. Neymar experienced that loneliness. Every injury created new headlines. Every setback created new jokes. Social media exploded with criticism. People questioned his commitment, his professionalism, his character. Very few asked a different question. What if he's simply human? What if the smiling footballer the world sees is carrying struggles nobody else understands? Because success doesn't protect anyone from disappointment. Money doesn't remove loneliness. Fame doesn't eliminate pressure. Being admired by millions doesn't guarantee inner peace. Those are battles that every human being fights, whether they're famous or not. And Neymar was no exception. Still, he continued, not perfectly, not without mistakes, not without criticism, but he kept returning, he kept believing, he kept playing the game that had once given a little boy from Brazil hope. Years passed, football changed, new stars emerged, the conversations shifted. For the first time in many years, people stopped asking whether Neymar would become the greatest player in the world. Instead, they started asking what his legacy would be. Some believed he had underachieved. Others believed injuries had stolen his greatest years. Many argued about what could have been. But perhaps they were asking the wrong question. Maybe greatness isn't only about becoming the best. Maybe greatness is also about inspiring millions of children to dream. Every child who copied Neymar's skills. Every young footballer who smiled while playing because of him. Every fan who fell in love with football after watching him. That impact cannot be measured by trophies alone. Numbers tell one story, lives inspired tell another. And Neymar's story was far from over. Because sometimes, the most meaningful chapters of a person's life aren't written during success. They're written during the moments when everything seems to be falling apart. And those moments would teach Neymar something that football never could. The true meaning of resilience. The true meaning of resilience. For most of his life, Neymar had been known for one thing. His smile, no matter how difficult the match. No matter how loud the stadium. No matter how much pressure surrounded him. He played with joy. To many fans, football looked effortless when Neymar touched the ball. But the truth was very different. Behind every smile was a person carrying expectations that few people could ever understand. Imagine waking up every morning knowing that millions of people expect you to be extraordinary. Imagine knowing that one bad performance will dominate headlines around the world. Imagine opening your phone and reading thousands of opinions from people who have never met you. Some praising you, some criticizing you, some deciding your entire legacy based on 90 minutes of football. That was Neymar's reality. Every single day, the higher he climbed, the more people forgot that he was simply another human being. They saw the footballer. They forgot the person. When Neymar celebrated, people celebrated with him. When he struggled, many disappeared. That is one of the hidden costs of fame. The applause is loud, but support during difficult moments is often very quiet. Then came another chapter, one that reminded Neymar how quickly life can change. Injuries continued interrupting his career. Each comeback required months of recovery, months of rebuilding confidence, months of proving himself all over again. For many athletes, returning after one serious injury is difficult. Neymar had to do it repeatedly. Again and again, each time believing his best football was still ahead of him. That takes extraordinary courage, because hope becomes harder every time disappointment repeats itself. Still, he refused to give up. Eventually, another opportunity arrived. A chance to begin again. A new country, a new league, a new chapter. Some people viewed it as the end of his career. Neymar viewed it differently. Every ending is also the beginning of something new. Life rarely follows the path we imagine when we're children. Dreams change, priorities change, people change. What matters most is continuing to move forward. Looking back on Neymar's journey, it becomes easy to focus on what he didn't achieve. People ask whether he should have won more Ballon d'Or awards, whether he should have won more Champions League titles, whether he should have become the greatest player in the world. Those questions will always exist. But perhaps they miss something much more important. Success isn't measured only by trophies. If it were, millions of children wouldn't still wear Neymar's jersey. Millions of fans wouldn't still copy his skills. Millions of young footballers wouldn't still smile every time they attempt a rainbow flick or a step over. Influence cannot always be counted. Sometimes, it can only be felt.